Spoštovani gospod minister, dr. Jernej Pikalo, spoštovani rektor, profesor Steinbach, Your Excellency, Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany, spoštovani gostje, spoštovani zbor. Danes imam res prijetno dolžnost, da vas ob tej prireditvi uvodoma nagovorim. Ob letošnji podelitvi nagrade za najinovacijo želimo posebej opozoriti na vprašanje, ki ga v najbolj žlahtni obliki naslavlja tudi inovacijska dejavnost naših študentov. To je vprašanje prenosa znanja z univerze v okolje, v industrijo, smo rekli včasih, pa seveda tudi druga okolja. To vprašanje je staro tako dolgo kot šola in zahteva naslavljanje zmerom znova, ker se razmere menjajo. Pojavilo se je, ko sta se čas in mesto izobraževanja ločila od časa in mesta šolanja, dela in življenja. To je bilo recimo kakšnih 200 let nazaj, ko smo dobili šolo kot institucijo za množično izobraževanje. Čim dlje so šole, vključno z univerzami, hodile svojo samostojno pot, tem bolj se je odpiralo vprašanje relevantnosti znanja, ki so ga posredovali učencem in študentom. To vprašanje pa se je posebej zaostrilo v zadnjih nekaj desetletjih, ko proizvodnja vse bolj temelji na znanju in ko za gospodarski uspeh postaja kritična sposobnost inoviranja in čas, ki preteče od ideje do tržnega proizvoda. Vez med univerzo in proizvodno vse skozi vzdržujejo diplomanti. Težava, s katero se srečujemo, pa je v tem, da za današnjo hitrost tehnoloških sprememb in kopičenje znanja traja dolgo, predno diplomanti prinesejo to znanje v delovna okolja. Tudi zato se odpira vprašanje relevantnosti njihovega znanja. Zato iščemo odgovore v različnih okoljih na različne načine, recimo z vključevanjem delodajalcev v pripravo in izvajanje izobraževalnih programov, z vključevanjem študentov v delovno okolje že med študijem, v spreminjanju načina učenja, v situacijskem in problemsko naravnanem učenju, v povezovanju procesov dela in učenja v proizvodnih okoljih in podobno. In čeprav diplomanti ostajajo najdragocenejša vez med univerzo in proizvodnjo, seveda niso edini, ki povezujejo svet raziskovanja in študija s svetom dela. Z željo, da bi se novo znanje, ki nastaja na univerzah in inštitutih čim hitreje in uspešneje prelilo v uporabo v proizvodnji, se v zadnjih desetletjih razvijajo nove oblike neposrednih povezav med univerzo in delodajalci. Gre za iskanje načinov in institucij za uspešno premoščanje razkoraka med univerzo in gospodarstvom, za zapolnitev praznega prostora, ki je nastal med njima. V razvoj teh oblik so nekatere države v preteklih letih vložile velika sredstva. Na naše predstavitve bodo razkrili nekaj primerov prenosa znanja, ki so nastali na naši univerzi ali pa v povezavi z njo. Ena od teh je potrebovala tudi inovacijam, ki jih bomo proglasili danes, in ta oblika je naš univerzitetni inkubator. Ni pa seveda edina. V prihodnje načrtujemo razvoj obstoječih oblik prenosa znanja in dopolnjevanje z novimi oblikami, zato da bi bili tem uspešnejši. S tem želimo, da bi bogato temeljno znanje, ki nastaja na naši univerzi, našlo pot do uporabnikov. S tem krepimo tudi našo družbeno odgovornost, saj kot porabniki javnih sredstev prispevamo k njihovemu ustvarjanju. Tako želimo okrepiti razvojno vlogo naše univerze. S temi besedami bi tudi sklenil ta pozdravni nagovor z željo, da bi ta današnji dan potekal v zanimivi obliki, v ustvarjalnem duhu, kjer se bodo morda pojavili nove ideje, kako premoščati tisto, čemu pravimo razkorak med izobraževanjem in delom. Hvala lepa.
Hvala, rektor Univerza, profesor dr. Ivan Svetlik, za vaše misli. Zdaj vabim k besedi ministra za izobraževanje, znanost in šport, profesorja dr. Jerneja Pikala.
Spoštovana gospoda rektorja, prorektorica, gospa ambasadorka, gospe in gospodje, predvsem pa seveda tisti, ki ste zaposleni na tej ali na drugih univerzah. Najprej rečem, in sicer najprej bi rad čestiti Univerzi v Ljubjani, ne samo za ta dogodek, ampak za vse tiste inovacije in prenose znanja, ki jih Univerza ustvarja in s tem zelo konkretno sodeluje z okoljem. Moje mnenje je od nekdaj bilo, da seveda Univerza sama kot taka, kot slonokoščeni stolp je sicer prav, da je. Ampak v današnjih časih na ta način ne more več ostati. Univerza je vedno bila in bo na nek način upeta v okolje in prav je, da na eni strani z okolja črpa, na drugi strani ga analizira in na tretji strani seveda okolju tudi daje. Znanje ni in nikoli ne bo samo za gospodarske oziroma tehnološke inovacije. Tisti, ki me poznate, veste, da vedno poudarjam tudi netehnološki del. Kajti tehnološke inovacije so pomembne, ampak velik del dodane vrednosti, vsaj tako mi govorijo nekateri menedžeri velikih, pa ne samo slovenskih, ampak tudi tujih, zelo inovativnih podjetij, tehnološko zelo inovativnih podjetij, je tudi v netehnoloških inovacijah. Je v prenosu znanja z področja poslovnih modelov, je v prenosu znanja z področja inovativnih kultur in tako naprej. Torej, tehnološke in netehnološke inovacije. Prenos znanja v okolje je na nek način vedno, tako jaz bi rekel, nek izoliran proces. Jaz ga razumem veliko bolj organsko. Razumem ga kot sobivanje z okoljem, ki pa ne pomeni, kot sem že rekel, samo gospodarstvo, ampak pomeni dosti širše. Ampak ko rečem tisto širše, seveda želim s tem reči tudi to, da bi si želel, da je okolje bolj odprto do znanja, ki ga ta ali katerakoli slovenska univerza ali raziskovalni inštitut ima. Velikokrat se dogaja, da se podjetja ali druge negospodarske organizacije po rešitve ne obrnejo na univerzo. Nismo še naredili tega miselnega preskoka, da bi lahko na univerzi ali na raziskovalnem inštitutu dobili katero od idej, katero od rešitev, ki nam lahko pomagajo tako v gospodarstvu, kot v negospodarstvu. Tako da na eni strani se seveda trudimo, da bi čim več, in tole prioriteto danes jemljem na ta način, da bi čim več stvari seveda iz univerze poskušali prenesti v okolje, v katerem je. Ampak na drugi strani pa mislim seveda tudi, da mora okolje spremeniti miselnost v tem smislu, da je na univerzi ogromno znanja in da marsikatero rešitev, ki jo mogoče inženirji ali kdorkoli drug ne vidi v podjetju, se lahko najde na univerzi ali na drugih raziskovalnih organizacijah. Tudi zato te organizacije so Seveda ni vse v aplikativnih, ampak seveda tudi v bazičnih raziskavah. Republika Slovenija spodbuja to sobivanje na eno celo vrsto inštrumentov. Mogoče so najbolj, bom rekel, finančno podprti centri odličnosti, kompetenčni centri, danes tudi sheme za podoktorske študije, s katerimi želimo, da se seveda mladi doktori na eni strani pridružijo programskim skupinam, na drugi strani pa seveda delujejo v povezavi z gospodarstvom ali ne gospodarstvom, skratka z okoljem. To je namreč eden od pogojev, ki jih imamo za te sheme za podoktorske študije. Tako da, hvala lepa še enkrat Univerzi za tale hvalevreden dogodek. Hvala lepa tudi vsem tistim, ki so inovacije in raziskave opravljali. In če smem, upam, da mi rektor ne bo zameril, vsem trem današnjim nagrajencem vnaprej čestitam. Upravičili pa me boste, ker imam čez približno pol ure poslanska vprašanja in bom nažalost, čeprav bi se bil raje tudi, moral to prirediti zapustiti. Hvala lepa.
Minister, za vaše besede. Več o dozdajšnjem prenosu znanja na Univerzi v Ljubjani in našimi pogledi v prihodnje bo spregovorila prorektorica Univerze, profesorica doktorica Maja Makovec Brenčič. Prosim.
Spoštovani zbir, dragi gostje, spoštovani minister, spoštovani profesor Steinbach, gospa ambasadorka in seveda dragi rektor in celoten zbir, tudi moji kolegi prorektori, dekani, dekanje in vsi, ki razumemo, zakaj je potrebno prenašati znanja, preprosto zato, da lahko spodbujamo rast in razvoj družbe kot celote. Hvala, da ste z nami danes z nami. Tale današnji dogodek smo namenili tudi temu, da malce predstavimo, kje Univerza je, kaj počenja in seveda, kako jo bomo poganjali dlje in dalje v naši odgovornosti do razvoja, o katerem sem govorila. Največja univerza v Sloveniji, seveda 95-letna gospa, ki še kako ve, zakaj je potrebno utemeljevati družbeni napredek s 23 fakultetami in 3 akademijami. Je, lahko rečemo, po področjih, ki jih privzemamo, najširše delujoča univerza od naravoslovja, tehnike, družboslovja, umetnosti, humanistike. Tisto, kar nas najbolj opogumlja, so seveda naši študentje. 45 tisoč jih je bilo v lanskem letu, skoraj 10 tisoč diplomantov, skoraj 6 tisoč nas je zaposlenih in okoli 300 milijonov evrov sredstev. Seveda, vsakič znova, tudi ko je minister z nami, povemo, da bi želeli imeti še več. Da je bila vedno univerza podpora razvoju, vemo, prav v tej stavbi se je dogajalo marsikaj, ko nam je pogumilo tudi slovenstvo in seveda njegov razvoj. In zato imamo še toliko večjo odgovornost, da skušamo ustvarjati nove dosežke. In to so temeljni dosežki naše univerze v preteklem letu. Ponosni smo na to, da se gibljemo v prvih odstotkih najboljših univerz na svetu, da pa se na šanghajski lestvici seveda želimo premikati še višje in višje, pa je naloga nas vseh, ki sobivamo na tej univerzi. Tisto, kar pogojuje prenose znanja, sta dva temeljna stebra, o katerih je že spregovoril rektor in minister. Najprej steber, ki temelji na raziskovanju, znanosti, na vzpodbujanju vsega, kar pravzaprav ureva osnovni napredek. V lanskem letu 286 raziskovalnih projektov z več kot 3000 vključenimi raziskovalci prav iz univerze. Več kot 500 mladih raziskovalcev, na kateri še posebej računamo in na kateri od njih so prav tisti, ki se bodo danes predstavili v zaključku tega dogodka. Več kot 157 raziskovalnih programov, in večina teh je bila tudi podprta strani Evropske unije, tako imenovani ciljni raziskovalni projekti, tehnološke platforme, 7 jih imamo in seveda si jih želimo še več, pa tudi netehnološki, kar je že izpostavil minister. Kar nas povezuje je seveda Evropska unija. Kot aktivni člani Evropske unije tudi na raziskovalnem razvojnem področju želimo seveda dosegati ne samo več sredstev, ki prihajajo iz teh skupnih virov za razvoj in napredek Evropske unije. Želimo predvsem vključevati več aktivnih mladih raziskovalcev in njih opolnomočiti, da še hitreje prenašajo znanja na mednarodne trge. Več kot 280 projektov iz različnih vrst virov oziroma projektnih skupine Evropske unije je bilo podprtih lansko leto in seveda tisto, kar povezuje najbolj, lahko rečemo, steber raziskovanja in znanja, se prav skozi projekte širi tudi med študente. Tiste, ki želimo usposobiti za to, da so raziskovalci, hkrati pa seveda nosilci znanj za celoten družbeni razvoj. In ne bi bilo raziskovanja brez izobraževanja in tudi ne izobraževanja brez raziskovanja, zato pravim, da sta to dva naša ključna stebra. Takole je z našimi programi na dodiplomski ravni, 128 univerzitetnih in 32 visokošolskih strokovnih programov. Poganjamo seveda tudi nove programe na ravni tako imenovanega +2 bolonjskega študija, torej magistrske programe, 215 programov in 13 skupnih programov je tistih, ki pripelje študenta do konca 5-letnega obdobja študija. 21 doktorskih programov, še posebej s poudarkom na interdisciplinarnosti, predvsem pa povezljivosti različnih, ne samo že jasnih znanstvenih področjih, ampak prepletanje znotraj njih je tisto, kar je nekako vodilo v pripravi in razvoju novih programov. Predvsem tistih, ki jih poganjamo z vrha univerze, kot rečemo, in povezujejo vse članice, torej vseh naših 26 enot. Nič posebej ne rečemo, da smo mednarodna univerza, ker preprosto čutimo, da smo, saj to dokazujejo tudi lestvice in dognanje, predvsem prepoznavne objave, skupni programi, mednarodni študentje in lahko rečemo tudi ves ta preplet mednarodnega duha še posebej prinašajo tako študenti iz tujine kot naši študenti, ki odhajajo na mednarodne šole oziroma naše partnerske univerze. Tole je številka samo tistih študentov, ki so prišli iz tujine, torej okoli 2000 rednih študentov, plus tega seveda Erasmus izmenjav, kratkih izmenjav in seveda skoraj da toliko tudi naših študentov, ki odhajajo v tujino na vseh stopnjah študija. Da je to mogoče, nam seveda veliko pripomorejo tudi tako imenovani projekti Erasmus. Tudi ti so namenjeni prenosu znanj med institucijami, med partnerji, tudi lahko rečemo so pomoči v razvoju, bodisi študijskih programov, tudi raziskovalnih podlag in veseli smo, da se ti širijo zdaj z našimi partnerji tudi na druge kontinente, Azijo, Ameriko in seveda še morda neodkrite države, tudi afriški del, postaja vse bolj zanimiv za prenos znanj na univerzitetni ravni. Kaj lahko rečemo, da že imamo od elementov, ki so bili danes sicer že omenjeni, kar se tiče prenosa znanja? Zagotovo centre odličnosti in upamo, da bomo z njimi na nek način lahko nadaljevali prav zaradi nadaljevanja doseženih rezultatov v 4-letnem obdobju delovanja. Zdaj pravzaprav vsi potrebujejo tržni preboj in lahko rečemo, da je ena od idej, kako bomo znotraj univerze to skušali podpreti, zagotovo ta, da stopimo skupaj in da vsa ta dognanja, tudi že patente, inovacije, izjume, pripomoremo le tem in pripomoremo, da lahko najdejo svojo boljšo pot na trg. Enako velja za centre, torej za kompetenčne centre. Ti so tisti, ki posegajo na vsa najbolj tipična področja, ki se tudi v znanosti najbolj pojavljajo z vidika Univerze v Ljubjani, od biomedicine, nanotehnologij, kemijskega področja, razvoja materialov, pa tudi družboslovnih področij. Ne smemo zanemariti, da se osnovne človeške kompetence in še posebej študentske krepijo prav v storitvah, ki jih nudimo skozi bodisi centre kompetenčnosti ali tako imenovani naš karierni center. Inovacija, to je samo podatek o tem, kaj se znotraj fakultet obstoječih institutov brez centrov odličnosti in kompetenčnih centrov dosega na ravni univerze, seveda s tem rečemo, da je always room for improvement, vedno je še prostor za izboljšave in tukaj zagotovo tudi skozi tako imenovano pisarno za prenos tehnologij poganjamo nove postopke, predvsem bolj sproščene postopke na ravni fakultet, da bi tudi vsi ti mladi raziskovalci, profesori in vsi, ki se ukvarjate z raziskovalnim delom, lažje prišli do prenosa znanja. Neposredni stiki z poslovno prakso potekajo vsak dan, bodi si skozi projektna dela študenti, diplome, magistrske naloge, doktorske dizertacije. Veliko je gostov iz prakse, kot jih poimenujemo, gostujočih predavateljev. Lahko rečemo tudi to, da skoraj 700 takšnih predavateljev prihaja tudi iz drugih raziskovalnih institucij. Številke kažejo, da smo odprta univerza do pretoka znanj tudi na dnevni ravni, a vendarle vedno je še prostor za še intenzivnejše sodelovanje in predvsem krepitve strateških partnerjev, še posebej na področju razvoja programov za izpopolnjevanje, torej vseživljenjskega izobraževanja, ki ga tudi Evropska unija še posebej pospešuje tudi v razvoju pretoka znanj. Znotraj naše univerze in ob njej v podporo prav povezljivosti med gospodarstvom in univerzo deluje inovacijsko-razvojni institut Univerze v Ljubljani. Ta s svojim poslovnim modelom skuša povezati deležnike ne le iz gospodarstva, tudi iz drugih institucij, tudi drugih raziskovalnih enot. Ima v svoji bazi preko 4000 raziskovalcev za specializiranimi znanji in tisto, kar v zadnjem času pravzaprav še bolj ozko skuša poglobiti v svojih znanjih in svetovanjih je področje energetike oziroma odnosa do okolja. Mislim, da je to eno od stičišč, ki ga lahko še bolj odpremo za gospodarstvo. To je model delovanja tega instituta in kot rečeno povezuje vrsta deležniški koncept, kot je tudi sicer običaj na drugih univerzah. In seveda naš inkubator, univerzitetni inkubator, danes tudi ne bi bilo naših finalistov, če ne bi bilo predanih deležnikov v inkubatorju, kar nekaj tistih mladih, ki je bilo nekoč od leta 2008 opetih kot start-upovci, tisti s prvimi idejami, že pristojalo letošnje ideje finalistov. Torej, to je tisto, kar želimo spodbujati znotraj idej in seveda inovativnosti študentov. Kaj je za nas najbolj pomembno? To, da vse te ideje, te študente seveda poganjajo, da doživijo tudi svojo realizacijo na trgu. No in tukaj je kar nekaj zanimivih logotipov podjetij, naših start-upovcev, kot jim rečemo. Tukaj bi se še posebej zahvalila gospodu Hozak, ki vse to poganja. Zakaj? Prosto zato, ker je izplen zelo dober, seveda si pa želimo še več, še večjega števila takšnih mladih podjetnih podjetij. V nadaljevanju današnjega dogodka bomo enega izmed njih tudi predstavili. To so aktivnosti inkubatorja, tako kot želijo tudi univerze po svetu in kot že to počno, še posebej skandinavske, tudi nemške univerze, kot bomo slišali kasneje. Veliko je potrebnega mentorskega dela, veliko svetovanj in seveda motivacij in spodbud. In te želimo povezati tudi tako, da vsako leto s prihajajočimi idejami čim več podjetij tudi omogočimo, da prihajajo na trg. Izplet leta 2013 imamo tukaj na zaslonu. Tudi inštituti še delujejo, tisti posebni inštituti, ki niso samo osnovni del same fakultete, ampak predvsem skušajo ciljno sodelovati z deležniki iz prakse, kot je recimo Center poslovne odličnosti ekonomske fakultete, pa takšne institute na fakulteti za gradbeništvo in geodezijo, na medicinski fakulteti in fakulteti in pedagoški fakulteti. Vsak se specializirajo za posamezna področja in želijo prenesti čim več praks, kar je najhitreje možno do svojih deležnikov. In karierni centri v zadnjem času so ti najbolj pomemben steber usmerjanja kariernega razvoja, pravzaprav pri tistih podlag, ki jih lahko ustvarimo študentom, zato da se lažje znajdejo na trgu dela. Trg dela je seveda zelo fleksibilen, je vse bolj, lahko rečemo, zahteven in vse težje je pravzaprav spodbuditi že mladega diplomanta, pravzaprav že kar študenta v prvem letu svojega študija, da najde neko svojo lastno pot in razmišlja o svoji poti. In naša naloga je, da ga spodbudimo k temu, da zna opraviti razmislek čim prej in ne da seveda v koncu, ko je diploma že v roki, začne iskati prvo zaposlitev. In mislim, da tudi vsi profesori celotno zbir na univerzi razmišlja in tudi pospešeno podpira, lahko rečemo, vse študentske aktivnosti, ki se povezujejo z delodajalci. Takole izgleda na naših dogodkih kariernega centra, so ne le slovenski, so tudi mednarodni in tudi mednarodna podjetja seveda prihajajo v naše najboljše talente. Kam in kako naprej? Veliko elementov smo nanizali že vsi skupaj kot uvodni govorniki, a vendarle, da bi lahko povezali vse te elemente, že obstoječe, jih intenzivirali, predvsem pa integrirali v neko celovito, zaokroženo in učinkovito celoto, pravimo, da moramo vzpostaviti tako imenovani ekosistem prenosov znanj Univerze v Ljubljani. In to je tudi naš cilj. Kako se tega lotiti? Še z krepitvijo odnosov z vsemi deležniki v gospodarstvu, s tem, da seveda začnemo spodbujati tako imenovano mrežo ambasadorjev znanj. In to je eno od nalog, ki bomo opravili še do konca leta, torej da vsaka fakulteta ima nekega nosilca, nekega predstavnika ali več teh, ki neposredno deluje z gospodarstvom. In tukaj vam prikazujemo, zdaj prvič smo sestavili nek nabor vseh storitev, vseh področij, vseh aktivnosti, ki jih fakultete že počnejo znotraj Univerze v Ljubljani, v pregledni zbir vsega, kar po vas, deležnike v gospodarstvu in širšem družbenem okolju morda zanimalo. In če dam refleksijo na že povedano, to je tisto, kjer mi želimo pritegniti, pravzaprav še več tistih, ki morda ne veste dovolj o nas, kaj se zmoremo in kaj se lahko ponudimo v prostor. Hvala. No, in seveda, glede na številke, ki smo jih videli, krepitev pisarne za torej za prenos tehnologij in krepitev tistega stebra, ki pomeni tudi inovativnost netehnološkega dela, torej predvsem družboslovja, umetnosti, humanistike, ter na koncu tako imenovano sodelovanje med vsemi elementi, instituti, ki sem jih že predstavila, preprosto iz razloga, da s pomočjo kariernega centra, inkubatorja, instituta za raziskovalno delo in inovacije, skozi vse življenjske programe ozavestimo vse nas, včasih tudi kar nas same znotraj univerze in seveda širšo družbo, da lahko skupaj ustvarjamo nova delovna mesta. Tega si najbolj želijo naši študentje, na tem vidim tudi eno od pomembnih srži prenosa znanj. Zakaj? Ker želimo do leta 2020 postati seveda ena najbolj odprtih mednarodnih in hkrati tudi odličnih in ustvarjalnih univerz, ki bo zmogla biti v resnici odlična in kreativna, takšna kot nekih dečkih že je in vedno je lahko še bolje. Hvala, da ste danes z nami in upam, da bomo v nadaljevanju naših diskusij seveda povezali tudi vsa ta številna drobna spoznanja o tem, ki vse smo lahko še boljši. Hvala.
Hvala lepa za vaše predsednico, gospa prorektorica. Zdaj pa prosim predsednika Tehniške univerze v Berlinu, profesorja doktorja Jerneja, da podeli z nami izkušnje prenosa znanja na njihovi univerzi, ki velja za eno vodilnih.
We've got the brains for the future, in the heart of the German capital. Ideas can change the world. TU Berlin is a widely recognized incubator of innovative ideas with a long and rich tradition of its own. Since 1884, TU Berlin has served as a focal point of scholarship, research, and learning. Today, it is an international center of academic excellence located in the heart of Germany's capital. The around 32,000 enrolled students strive to obtain degrees in 100 different academic programs in the university's 7 faculties. International students account for 20% of the student body. The university's forward-looking academic profile prepares much-needed young talent for the difficult future challenges facing society and industry. This is achieved through dynamic interplay between the engineering and natural sciences on the one hand, and planning, social, economic sciences, and the humanities on the other. Interdisciplinary research teams strive to provide optimal solutions for the technical problems of the future. 2 internationally visible projects in mathematics and chemistry pay testimony to the success of this approach. Both are sponsored by the Excellence Initiative of the German federal and state governments. TU Berlin is not only a highly respected research university, it is also a driving force in the economic life of the capital region. In 2012, for instance, the university raised around 160 million euros in external funding for its scientific projects. These results are among the best of any university in Germany. Our university is also committed to promoting science-based startup companies. TU Berlin has been designated as an Exist Startup University, one of only a few German universities to receive this honor. For its 38,000 members, TU Berlin offers modern career paths, a healthy work-life balance, and equal opportunity for all. "We've got the brains for the future" is indeed the guiding principle to which we are committed.
Dear Vice President or Vice Rector Maja Brenčič, Your Excellency Ambassador Prinz, dear distinguished audience, it's a great pleasure for me to speak to you this morning. When your Vice Rector just sat down after her presentation, I made a small side remark to her and so I said, "You haven't left anything to tell you." But, so we have to find out whether I can still tell you something new or something on top of what you've already done. What I can say here is a, let's say, first introduction, and this is not just the politeness of a visitor. You have just defined a certain vision for 2020. My perception from these couple of hours I'm able to stay with you and from the time we spent together in Berlin is that you have already accomplished 95% of the way up to your own targets. The problem is that this curve of success has this asymptotic course, and so I know that the remaining 5% sometimes are even the bigger challenge. But you have done an excellent job in that. Your reputation is already as such as you would like to have here on the European continent. Well, I showed to you this little video to give you a brief introduction into my university in Berlin. We just compared a little bit the setup. There is one slight difference between your university and my university. We are a true campus university, right in the very city center of Berlin. This road here, I don't know whether, yes, it works. This road here is one of the most famous roads in Berlin. It actually cuts the city into the southern and the northern part. You can follow it from the very west to the very east. If you have enough endurance, if you follow this road long enough to the east, you will end up in Moscow, and if you follow it up long enough to the west, you will end up in Paris. So it's a road which defines geographically that we are in the heart of Germany. Perhaps before I come to the topic of technology transfer, in addition to the little movie, a brief word of history. We have been founded in 1879. We had institutions mostly based on vocational training, but the true foundation is 1879. That was the unification to the Royal Technical College of Berlin, and that has a special meaning to many of us because up to them it was not allowed to bestow the title of a doctor to engineers. That was reserved to philosophy, to theology, and so forth. And it was in that year that the German emperor granted us the right to bestow the title of Dr. Ingenieur to our graduates. So that's the birth hour, so to say, of the Dr. Ingenieur. We have an awful history regarding the time of 1933 to 1945. We have to live up to our own history. I can only apologize to what has happened on our premises. Almost everything awful you can think of which took place in Germany at that time also didn't take place at our university, and we are trying to live up to our history and to do whatever we can in order to give proof that we have learned from history. One of the key factors of having learned from history is that we had been completely closed down after World War II. We had to reapply for refoundation, and Berlin at that time was divided into 4 sectors governed by the Allies, and the university lies within the former British sector, so we had to apply with the British for refoundation. And it was their obligation and personal, that they said there should never be again an engineering and the natural sciences education taking place at these premises here without a chance for the students to reflect their doing in the humanities. So it's part of our refoundation certificate that we have the obligation as an Institute of Technology also to host Faculty of Humanities. And we had to learn, I have to admit this, to the rector who comes from the humanities and social sciences. We had to learn to regard this as a gadget. Today we know that actually there should be no project in engineering and natural sciences without some involvement from the humanities. But we had to learn this. Okay, 2005, this is just a little remark there with the certain faculties. I always find out that we actually would need a kind of a matrix to translate the different terms. So if you're speaking of 23 faculties, I'm not quite sure whether you're using the same definition as we are using it. Sorry. Anyway, just from colleague to colleague, some 30 years ago we had a setup structure of 8 faculties. At that time, a predecessor of ours had the marvelous idea to split them off to 22 faculties, and over the steps of 15 faculties they were recondensed to 7 after 25 years, and perhaps it's now time again to keep the cycle going and to split them off again. So dynamic setup organization. Okay, as I said, we are a true institute of technology, comprehensive in terms of engineering, almost comprehensive in terms of natural sciences. There's just one exception, this is biology. This is due to the history and budgetary situation of our city. And then we are hosting 3 large universities, and but we try to avoid to offer certain subjects 3 times in the city. We have one big advantage, like yours and Stefan Josef's Institute. We have almost 45 institutes of this type in the environment of the city and the surroundings of the city of Berlin, from Max Planck, Helmholtz, Fraunhofer, name them all. And we actually would make a big mistake if we would not exploit this geographical advantage. So we have court upon almost 40 colleagues who have 2 assignments. They're full professors at our university, and at the same time they are directors of these external research organizations. And that helps us actually to make sure that certain federal money is fed back to the local situation of our university, because they're usually a little bit financially better off than we are as state-funded institutions. Okay, we can skip this one. This is the number of recent awards and so forth. As you can see, we are also trying to be active in the field of ERC grants. We got 3 advanced ones, 5 starting ones, and now 2, what's the new title there? There's a 3rd kind which we just obtained just recently. Consolidating grants, that was the word I was looking for. But this is. Then for those who are interested in figures, I was interested to learn about your 300 million euros for 45,000 students. We have approximately 290 million for 32,000 students at the moment. This is not quite fair to compare. I don't know whether you have to pay the pensions out of your budget. We do have to pay the pensions out of our budget. Yeah, you too? Okay, this is not fair for both of us. So we have, the minister left too early. We should have to change this. We are also internationally oriented with almost 20 10% students coming from abroad. And as mentioned in the video, last year was our record year. We were able to acquire 170 million euros third-party money for research. So for every euro we get from the government, we obtain another 60 euro cent per chair and per euro. And this is the development of the recent years, and with almost 600,000 fresh euros per year per chair, we are, I think, allowed to say that we are among the top players in not only in Germany but also in Europe. Okay, coming to again a little bit to the vision very briefly. We just under the effort of reshaping our profile, and naughty people call that the onion models. The model, I can live with that as long as it doesn't bring the tears into your eyes. We are focusing on a vision there that we want to make sure that we are not pursuing glasshouse research, but that whatever we do contributes to life quality of society and helps to solve problems of the future. And we define 6 key areas we want to pursue and which shall represent the profile of our university. And as you can see, there are many points where we have strategic matches with you, and you're welcome to discuss these things with me later in order to come up with some cooperation. And this is then backed up by the faculties we do have, and with our responsibilities with respect to the society. Coming to the actual topic, I took over responsibility at my house in 2002. And I always start with that little story. It was one of my first obligations to open a conference, or to say words of welcome to a conference of the American Society of Engineering Education at that time. And they dedicated a whole afternoon to the topic of entrepreneurship. At that time, I was not able to write down this word. I didn't know how to pronounce it, and I had trouble to really understand the meaning of it. And the first thought I had was, oh, another buzzword topic coming across the Atlantic, chasing us through the village, and to make sure that we have to follow up your interesting things, but would it be worthwhile? And it took a while till 2 things did happen. One was we were more and more frequently asked about our record in that field, and we presented figures from the late 1980s. That was not so nice, 20-year-old data to present it, those things. So something had to happen. And the second thing was that I met a colleague, at that time provost of Berkeley, and he made a personal impact on myself because he made the statement, what you are doing there is not something you should do voluntarily, it is something you are obliged to do. And why is that the case? There are 2 circles, 2 communities, the invention community and the innovation community. And the big difference is that we are spending a lot of public money to come up with some inventions. And the innovation cycle is the dedication actually to earn money. Now, if you bring those 2 together, then we can close the circle. We are tax funded, so we are consuming taxpayers' money. And one or the other way, there must be a closed loop to pay some of the money back. And if we exploit our inventions in terms of innovation, in terms of patents, licenses, spin-offs, and those employees of these spin-offs, they actually pay, again, taxes. The company earns money and pays taxes for this purpose. Then suddenly there flows some money back into that pot, which in the very end, again, finances us, a state-funded university. And I thought this was very convincing, this philosophy, that this is not something we should do voluntarily, but we have the obligation to give something back to the society who is actually funding this. The problem is that inventions at a university, as put there, is quite a complex matter. Perhaps I exaggerated a little bit in making this graph a little bit more complex than it would need to be, but it shall give you the flavor. There are so many stakeholders. We are looked upon in terms of external reputation, what we're doing there. Whatever we do has to be in compliance with certain laws, and they are not always in favor of the field of academia in that area. We need partners to exploit these things. We have to streamline that with our own research activities. So just to say we want to be active in the field of technology transfer and in the specialty of entrepreneurship won't work. We have to put strategic thinking into this. And what we are currently doing in amendment to the Center of Entrepreneurship you're already familiar with from your visit to my university, we have just in January taken the decision to set up another center, and that actually is going to be set a little bit more to the front. It's the Center of IPRs and Technology Transfer, because, okay, it's nice to talk about entrepreneurship, it's nice to talk about incubation and so forth, but is everything of a character that it should be exploited in terms of a spin-off or of a foundation? No. There are inventions which actually should be transferred to different ways of technology transfer. We do have a word today of open access. Whether we like it or whether we don't like it, different question, but we can't fully ignore it. So there are some inventions which actually are prone to be transferred to this region of open access. There are things which are not worthwhile that you set up your own enterprise, but you should sell it. You should try to produce income in terms of license fees. That means you need a lot of network actually to, in two directions. First to identify the potential, and then to find the matches for this potential. And this is the purpose here of this center, what we are trying to introduce there. And they are the one-stop agency for every member of the university. If they come up with something, then they get the consultancy there, which is the most adequate way of technology transfer for this special purpose. And the other thing is, and I don't know how the culture is here within your university, but back at home, none of us as lecturers, as professors, has ever been trained to look upon our own discoveries, and I wouldn't even call them inventions at the moment, I would call them discoveries, whether they have the potential to be exploited. We look for the fast publication. We look for the feedback in terms of increase of our own reputation by putting that into the relevant papers, peer-reviewed papers. So we are not educated in this attitude. So we need people who actually go through our university, I would say twice a year at least, that's what we're aiming for at the moment, to look at every laboratory and to be told what are you actually working on. That these people can give a feedback. Have you ever thought that this is worth patenting? Have you ever thought that this should be actually exploited in a different way? And then we have to define a way on how to do it better and to have a revenue back for the university. So it must be a two-way street, and that must be accompanied by education in that field. It must be accompanied by a forum, by a lively forum, because what we also need is the feedback from industry. We also need the feedback from business agents and so forth. We need role models. I will come back to this a little later. And so this has not only the purpose of exploiting the activities of the university, but also to providing the principal environment in terms of education for this area. So it's a multi-stakeholder activity, And we have to bring them together and to produce synergy in order really to do something about it. So possibilities are there, but in order to put them into practice, we need the cooperation of different active parties. And then you have, as I just said, you have the different scenarios, whether this is open access, whether this is selling yourself, whether this is exploiting yourself, or whether it's really your own enterprise. I don't go into the details of this. Okay, the screen here, for instance, is a little smaller. I will try to tell you the Prince idea, which is behind those plots. We looked a little bit into the, how shall I say, the fundamentals of entrepreneurship as one special expression of technology transfer. And we looked at the potential there. How many people are active in that field in relationship to the total number of people who are active as professionals in the field? And we are down there. That's 4 to 5% who are active in that field. And there are other countries, and that's the innovation-based countries here. And that's the US here, with 15%. Sweden in that region, Israel. But we are down here. It is not the culture yet in Central Europe. This is the percentage of people between 18 and 64 who do become entrepreneurs. And look where we are. Okay, midfield somewhere. But this is the potential which still is there. This is actually dramatic. This is technology-based foundations. So, okay, the IT sector provokes that many of our activities are in the service field, but that we do not form or found our own enterprises technology-based. That's only just a very small portion of our activities in that field. And then the question of perception. You don't have to read that, just look at there are spots which are green and spots which are red. And to make it very simple, green says the federal government of Germany provides a lot of programs for some financial support in these activities, but they are bad in terms of help with taxes. To give you one example how one can do this. Last night we had the pleasure of meeting your colleague from Turkey. And the 4 large institutes of technology in Turkey, Istanbul, Ankara, and others, they have their science parks. And these are tax-free areas. Tax-free areas. And the rent the spin-offs do pay to stay in these parks of technology goes back to the rector of the university. Without boundary conditions, he can use that as strategic money to develop his university further. We should keep that in mind. We are still far away from good practices in that field. And this is a plot which I leave all the assets here with you that we can look at them later. This is the vertical line there is the perception in Germany, and where are countries who regard certain environment worse than it is in Germany, and to which respect do they think that the situation in other countries is better than in Germany. And a key factor there, which is also on this plot, is the societal perception of entrepreneurship. And I was just asked by one of your newspapers here a couple of minutes ago, what should we change in order to improve the situation with respect to entrepreneurship in our societies? One answer, okay, it's what I'm already answering now, that's these centers, these people looking for exploitable discoveries, inventions, and to provide the infrastructure. But let me provoke you a little bit with the second thing. We have to change the mindset of the parents. Now, what do I mean by this? the traditional approach in Central Europe, and you belong to it as much as we do, is first, please do learn something which is reliable for your future life. Go to a bank, have some vocational training as a painter or as a house builder or whatever. And if you have learned something real, okay, then think of a career in university. Even that is already regarded only of limited security in terms of life perspective. And now enter the area of entrepreneurship. There is no life security there in terms that you can really earn enough money for your family, for the kids, and so forth. Even though today there is no safe job in the world anymore, except perhaps in public service. But I worked in the industry for 11 years. There is no safe job in industry anymore. So, but it is the perception that it is still regarded safer than actually to act independent. And if you go to the States, if you go to Silicon Valley, if you ask why they are more successful in that field, they have a nice term there. Nice try. And nice try means go on, give it a second attempt, try it with something else. And even if you have failed 2 or 3 times before you have become successful, it is regarded by the society as a progress in personal maturity. It is regarded as positive in terms of personal career. The worst perhaps is Asia, where one failure in your career is accompanied with losing your face to the extent that you are brandmarked for the rest of your life as a loser. And we are perhaps somewhere in between. But we do not have the mentality that we say, nice try is something positive. And if you would make a survey at your university and check how many students have enrolled to get an education for a job, how many want to pursue an academic career, and how many do want to become their own bosses in their later life, then this last category will be easy to count. So it's a change of mindset we have there. And we all bring our own history with us. And the history we bring with us is the education at home. And that's why I made that provoking remark. We have to change the mindset of the parents if we really want to change the statistics. So this is the second center we have established. And that was a little story of success Maja Brenčič did refer to. We set this up in 2004, and we learned one thing, and we are repeating this with the Center for IP Arts. I see, I would guess from the age distribution that there are some colleagues here, some professors here with us today. The truth is, we only accept certain activities if they are done by us. If they are just pursued by administration. Do we really trust them? Do we really commit ourselves to it? But if a professor gives his name for this activity, suddenly it becomes purified, or however you may call it, blessed, yeah? In terms of personal activity. So what we started to do in 2004 is to set up these kind of centers which are headed on eye level by a full professor, in that case a professor for entrepreneurship and innovation management. That's the left side here. And we have the persons, how did one put it last night? We put everything into practice. We put it from theory to practice. And we now need those as well. And they have really, they must form a basis, a joint basis, that not a piece of paper goes between the two of them. And then you can achieve certain things. And that's what we did in the past. This, again, not to be read, it just gives you a flavor of what we have developed from 2004 to 2014 in terms of pathways to support those who are interested. We try to provide inspiration. We try to, let me say something very naughty. I'm a Bologna missionary, believe it or not. But I'm not a fan of Bologna or how Germany has actually implemented it. I know better examples in Europe. And what we have done in Germany, and I hope that you are better than we are, to some extent by introducing the new curriculum, we have killed creativity. And that forms a basis, actually, to be a good engineer, to be creative. And so we have to go back to the roots. We have to provide inspiration, and we have to enhance creativity in the young ones enrolled at our university. Then comes consultancy, then comes finances, then comes training, and so forth, and so forth. We have these kind of startup days where we invite people back who are successful entrepreneurs. We need the role models. I think it's on, no, it's not on the next slide. We did invite the founder of Skype, the Audi Max, the capacity of 1,500 people. It was fully packed by young people. No lecture has ever that degree of attendance. I have no idea where it's at. So, and this, everyone from natural sciences here would deny or would agree actually to include this as part of the core curriculum because it would reduce the amount of traditional teaching. Huh? So where to find the compromise that everybody gets into contact with that and how to provide the extra courses. What we are offering for these kind of courses, 3 ECTS, so it contributes to the total degree at the very end. Incubator, okay, you have a very practical example here. I don't have to tell everything about it. Access to the market. And this perhaps is another thing there, access to finance. At least in Germany, I don't know where this here in Slovenia, but in Germany we don't have a culture for venture capital. What we actually observe is that our people with good discoveries and inventions, they go to Silicon Valley because there's the mentality to get the money, the venture capital. And interesting enough that the Americans should let them sleep, let them asleep as they are, because about 60%, 70% of the spin-offs actually return back to Europe when they have overcome the first hurdles of their own birth. So finally the money doesn't go back to the States, it then goes back to Europe. Interesting enough, so let's keep them asleep. But we have to change again the situation. And one thing which has really worked out at TU Berlin to a tremendous extent is the business angel model. Those of you, and I heard that some of you are innovators, entrepreneurs, and that you will get an award this afternoon. I make a prediction today. I write it on a piece of paper, I put it in an envelope, and I give it to you, and you open it up in 10 years. Those of you who have now found their own enterprise will not work for their first enterprise after 10 years anymore. It will have become too boring for you. You have a mentality, and after 5 years, you're looking for the next challenge. And if you actually are able to implement something that your successful entrepreneurs of that university do come back and do provide the venture capital for the next generation, then it works. And these kind of business angel evenings are the most successful ones. We have these pitch technologies where the young ones have to present their ideas between 3 and 5 minutes. And the people are sitting there. Then we're making use of our big atrium. They get all different places in the area with signposts. We are project number 12. And then the business angels have made their remarks there during the pitch. And during the evening, having a glass of wine, they go back to the individual groups there which are of interest to them. And then the first business connections bringing money to them are formed. That is our story of success. So we have approximately reached, the value, this was middle of the year, that's statistics, so it's not a breakdown. we produce approximately 20 to 25 spin-offs per year. We have the advantage with the capital, which forms an attractive curve. So the summary, as you can see here, you can read it by yourself. We always do a survey every year. And the part that you see the return rate there, 72% of our spin-offs have remained within the region. 80% of the spin-offs have survived. And the figure is down there. 1.1 billion euros of turnover of our spin-offs 2 years ago. So I think this is presentable to our government that we have closed the circle because the government, the city of Berlin, earns money from this turnover of 1.1 billion. We are and have become an economic factor of the city. The revenue in terms of patents and licenses amounts to 1 million. We were happy to receive this. Let me frustrate you. I spoke about that to colleagues from Technion. Their revenue per year is 20 million. So there's lots of space still for us to remain ambitious here. If you go to Weizmann, 200 million. So, okay, we are still also in our baby shoes. We would like to do that together with you in the future. And perhaps my little contribution gave a little bit of motivation to continue with the way you are. Thank you very much.